Today we're going to talk about a software development model that basically threw out the old rulebook. Why? Because it's all about one thing: speed. We're talking about the RAD model. And trust me, it was built for a world that just doesn't like to wait. You've probably noticed this, right? Ever wonder how your favorite apps can roll out new features so ridiculously fast? One day you're wishing for a feature, and bam, the next week, it's there. How in the world do they do that? Well, the secret is usually in how they think about building software. It's a totally different philosophy. So, let's look at this tale of two methods. For ages, the old way to build software was something called the waterfall method. And it was slow, super rigid. You had to finish one step completely before you could even think about the next. It was like building a skyscraper one floor at a time, and you couldn't see the whole thing until the very, very end. But then, a faster way came along, something way more flexible, built in these quick little bursts. And this is the key: it's all about getting constant feedback from the people who are actually going to use the thing. Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll talk about why speed became so important. Then, we'll properly introduce the RAD model. After that, we'll look at its four-phase sprint, figure out if RAD is actually right for your project. And finally, we'll give it a good old-fashioned report card. All right, section one: the need for speed. So let's set the scene. As technology just exploded in the late 20th century, those old, slow ways of building software, they felt like they were running in quicksand. The market was changing faster than anyone could keep up, and developers just couldn't code fast enough. Something had to give. There was this desperate, almost frantic need for speed. Okay, so into this chaos, this need for speed, comes a new challenger. A new model was born, and it was designed from the ground up for one purpose: to deliver quality software, but way, way faster. So let's meet our solution. And here it is: RAD, which stands for Rapid Application Development. Now, at its heart, it's really a philosophy built on three big ideas. One, develop fast. Two, work in these short, repeatable cycles. And three, this one's a game changer: keep the person who's actually going to use the software involved every single step of the way. These ideas were so revolutionary at the time, they ended up being the foundation for what we now call the whole agile movement. And look, RAD isn't some hot new trend. It's been around. IBM actually came up with this way back in the 80s. Its big innovation was genius. Take these massive, overwhelming projects and chop them up into small, manageable sprints. We're talking 60 to 90 days. That's it. And today, that same idea is alive and well, but it's been supercharged by powerful programming languages like Java and C++. These are perfect for creating reusable chunks of code, which is what really makes this whole thing so fast. The focus shifted from writing endless documents to building actual working prototypes, things you could see and touch, not just read about. Okay, so that's the what and the why. But how does it actually work? Let's get into the nitty gritty and break down the four phases of a RAD sprint. So, it all kicks off with phase one: requirements planning. This is where everyone, developers, users, stakeholders, gets in a room and agrees on what the goals are. Then comes the really cool part: phase two: user design. This is the absolute core of RAD. Developers whip up quick prototypes, and users immediately get to play with them and give feedback. That feedback directly fuels phase three: construction. This is where the real heavy duty coding happens. And finally, you have phase four: cutover. That's the big handoff, where everything gets tested, plugged into the existing systems, and launched for everyone to use. And if you take away only one thing, let it be this: the key is continuous user feedback through prototypes. Seriously, the whole idea of locking developers in a room for 6 months to build something in secret, RAD throws that right out the window. It's all about building simple, working models, prototypes, and getting them in front of real users fast. That back and forth, that continuous feedback loop, that's the secret sauce. It's everything. But, and this is a big but, RAD isn't a magic wand. It's not a silver bullet you can use for every single problem. It's an amazing tool for some jobs and a complete disaster for others. So let's get practical and figure out when you should reach for this tool and when you should leave it in the toolbox. So that leads us to the big question, right? When should you actually choose the RAD model? How do you know if your project is a right fit? Well, here's a little checklist of the perfect conditions for a RAD project. First, you need to have a pretty clear idea of what you're building. The requirements are mostly understood. Second, time is of the essence. You've got a deadline breathing down your neck. Third, and this is a non-negotiable, you have users who are on board and ready to give you constant feedback. Oh, and it's best for small to medium-sized projects that aren't super complex technically. Think about it. RAD is perfect for building, say, a new internal dashboard for your sales team, but you would never use it to build the navigation system for a Mars rover, right? The stakes are just too high. You can't afford to get that wrong. Okay, Section 5, it's time for the final report card. Let's do a reality check and get really honest about RAD's biggest strengths and, just as importantly, its biggest weaknesses. So let's look at the pros and cons. The advantages are pretty awesome. You get what it says on the tin, super fast development. You get feedback early and often, and you can pivot on a dime when things change. But the disadvantages are real, and you gotta pay attention to them. First, this is not for a junior team. You need skilled, experienced pros who can build fast without making a mess. It also really helps if you already have a bunch of reusable code ready to go. And here's the big one. If you don't have users who are committed to being involved constantly, the whole thing just falls apart. It grinds to a complete halt. So, what's the crucial point here? It really boils down to this. RAD is all about a trade off. You are intentionally giving up that old school, rigid, long term planning. And what do you get in return? You get pure speed and the flexibility to change things on the fly.